privilege to have Gale Boyd come speak with us tonight. And when I contacted her, she said, I don't drive at night. I don't go places anymore. And I thought this is the time to have her come. She was president of Bnai Shalom when I first moved back to Utah, and I just associate everything about everything in her book. Anything in the Law of Moses as it points to the Messiah. She's the person I learned that from. And we use your Passover Seder every year in our family. So when I contacted her, she said, what would you want me to speak on? And I said, who am I to tell you what to talk about? What would you like to speak about? And so we're really excited to have her tonight. I have a little inkling of what she might talk about because I helped her make the PowerPoint presentation. But I actually don't really have any idea because it's not very detailed. I'm very, very grateful to have Gale here tonight. And we're just really honored to have her and her years and years of wisdom and all of the study that she has done. And so without further ado, Gale.
So with all this research that I've done for years and years and years, my brain is so heavy that it's making me shorter and shorter and shorter until the podium is almost touching the table. There's only like a couple of inches between. Okay. So I'm not going to give you a ton of intellectual stuff tonight because we don't have much time and I don't have a lot of intellectual stuff. But I hope we can have some fun. And what we do at our Passovers is it's a wonderful religious experience, but it's also supposed to be fun. And so we tend to get pretty loud, and I want this to be informal. So if you have a burning question, I don't know what you should do. No, you should just throw your hand in the air.
Where'd Daniel go? Oh, okay, we have two mics, one over there and one over here, so if you have a burning question,
yes.
We have mics for you.
And this is also my first time with a clicker for a PowerPoint presentation that was actually created for me. I mean, how's that? You don't even have to do your own PowerPoint presentation. So this is going to be a really cool experience, I think. So you can see that, right? I can see it here on. So this is going to be interesting. So I push the forward arrow. I push it harder.
Okay, we will put it here.
I push it towards that thingy.
There you go.
And now you see a big pink circle, right? Good. That's really exciting. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning. So the beginning is DNA, right? I just had my DNA returned by Ancestry.com, and this is my pie chart. Where's Adise? Adise's pie chart is so exciting. She's got all kinds of wedges all over the place. She's from everywhere, and this is mine. Actually, I learned on the way up here today that Jeremy Friedbaum has even less of a little yellow wedge out of his. I'm 2% low confidence areas. That's what that little yellow part is low confidence areas. They think maybe Italy or Greece, which is, I guess, if you were migrating into Europe from Israel, then you would maybe get a little bit of Italy or Greece. Yes, Jeremy.
Well, that is because Ancestry.com does not have as many Jewish subgroups as my family, my heritage. So if you upload it to my heritage, I found out that my Italian and my Greek were actually Jewish Italian.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so those low confidence areas can be answered by someone else. The rest is all European Jewish. So that's kind of the beginning. Let's see where those people are from. So this is the Blumenthal family. And the Blumenthal family, they had 13 children, as most people did in those days. They arrived in the United States to the South around 1860, just in time for the Civil War, speaking Yiddish and German, conscripted into the Confederate Army, a number of these people. If you've ever pictured a Confederate soldier speaking Yiddish, you need to get that into your brain now, because evidently at least one of them did. So my grandfather is among this group. He's Meyer, and this family came from Bavaria. Yeah.
As someone from Georgia, did they say shalom, y'all?
Eventually, before they all moved up to Philadelphia, they probably did. Yes. This is an image of Blumenthal Brothers Chocolate Factory in Philadelphia. Has anyone ever had?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, you can thank my mother's family for goobers and raisinets and nonpareil wafers with the little white dots on top, and malted milk balls too. So my family was the original developers of these candies at the Blumenthal Brothers. It started out flavorings company and then became a chocolate company, and purchased by Ward and then purchased by Nestle. So now you know where those come from. They were rich. This doesn't look like much of a home, but it was huge and very well appointed. They had servants. My mother was raised by a governess, and during the Great Depression, candy and movies did very well. So the movie industry moved forward and the candy industry moved forward, and they weathered the Depression quite well. This is my grandmother's family, and this is where I get my naturally curly hair. As long as it doesn't rain in here, this will stay like this. If it rains or gets wet or the sprinklers start, it will look like that very quickly. Again, from Bavaria, all these people knew each other when they came over. Those who stayed behind in Germany were killed in the Holocaust. Now, the reason I'm here tonight is because I'm the winner of the cutest great-grandparent contest. I mean, really, folks, if you have cuter great-grandparents than that on my father's side, you can just get in touch with me personally. I really don't think so. This is Morris Tompakov and his wife Miriam, actually Moishe Tompakov. They arrived from Ukraine. They lived in a ghetto near Kyiv, and immigrated in 1914 to Baltimore. And they were poor. So this is the story of the German Jews in America and the Russian Jews arriving later. The German Jews were very successful and did very well, very accomplished people. And when the Russian Jews came in, and my grandmother was from Lithuania, so the Pale of Settlement, when they came in, they were quite looked down upon by the German Jews who were already here. But they were really, I mean really. This is my father, the little boy, and all of these people are really short. I don't know if that surprises you, but my grandfather, Boris, was only 5'4". My father reached 5'6", so very short family. And my father only spoke Yiddish when he started grade school, which means that he spoke German. Also, I'm going to talk about why that was important. My father's name was Joseph, but they called him Yossi. So, my father, his uncle paid for him to go to his first year of college at Johns Hopkins University. And then his uncle didn't have to pay anymore because he got a full-ride scholarship to Johns Hopkins. He got a doctorate from Johns Hopkins, and then World War II was going on, and because my father spoke German, he was in science. He wasn't like on the front lines or anything, but at the end of the war, They sent him to Germany to recruit German rocket scientists for the American space program. So if you ever heard of Werner von Braun, he was one of those. He was the head of the American space program. So the Russian space program, the American space program, and every space program was run by Nazis, brought over from Germany. And my father was sent over there as a Jew to recruit these scientists. And he took an empty notebook with him, and he'd sit down to interview a German scientist. The Allies were coming in and taking over, and he would ask the scientist's name, he would tell him, and the notebook was empty. There was nothing in it. And my father would look and he'd say, "Oh, you must not be very important because you're not on my list." And the rocket scientist would say, "Are you kidding? I this, I that, I this, I that." And my father would say, "Would you like to come to America and be in our space program?" And if the scientist refused, my father would look at his watch and say, "Well, the Russians will be here in a couple of hours." And that usually sealed the deal. So this was called Operation Paperclip, and is quite famous, and there's a lot of very negative articles online about the fact these were Germans. All of these men were German. So they came over to America, and that's how we got our space program going. Their science was very much ahead of anyone else in the world. So this is a fuse. It's called the proximity fuse, which my father was on the development team for, and it propels a rocket somehow. I was an English major, so this is a proximity fuse. My father told me that. So what happened was it was a joint project between Applied Physics Laboratory in Pasadena, California, and Johns Hopkins. My father was a professor at Johns Hopkins after the war, and then we moved to California, to Los Angeles, to work on this project, and we stayed there. So from the time I was 8, I lived in LA. So we're in LA. We had moved away from all of our family in the East. They were all Jewish, and this story is actually online. So the link is provided on the Bnai Shalom website, and you can see my conversion story there. So I don't want to spend too much time on that, but I was raised with science as our religion. We children like to watch an oscilloscope, which is a little round screen with lines that just go like that. We thought that was the coolest thing. I mean, it was better than TV, right? Just watching this thing. We had all these instruments in our house. We used to go to White Sands, New Mexico. We did, there was atom bombs being developed and all kinds of things. So science really was our faith in the home, and that wasn't good enough for me. By the time I was 16, I was ready for something and found the church. And my story, again, is online. So this is our family today. We're just missing a few people from this picture from last Thanksgiving. And you can't tell by looking at us, but it was really cold when we got these pictures taken. But in the time in between, I married my husband Bud, and in 1968, and by the time we had 5 children, I was the secretary of Bnai Shalom at the time, 82, 81, something like that. And someone made a report to the brethren that there were Jewish converts holding Jewish ceremonies in Mormon wards. So a few of us were called in from Bnai Shalom to meet with Elder Faust and try to explain that what we were doing was actually building testimonies and not destroying them. And so we talked with Elder Faust and explained to him what we were doing in these Passovers, and I'm not sure whether BYU was doing them at that time or not, but they may have been already. He was calmed down a bit, but he said that he said, I've always just felt like when people join the church, we should all be kind of a big homogeneous group. And we who were there representing Bnai Shalom said, everything that Heavenly Father personally does with us in our lives emphasize our heritage as Jews. And he wants us to use that heritage for a special purpose. And that's so obvious to the few of us who are meeting with you today, that Heavenly Father has something specific for us to do as children of Judah. And by the time we finished with our discussion, he just said, yeah, just continue what you're doing is good. Go ahead and hold your Passovers in your wards, which I've done many times. So it turned out to be great. In 1983, we moved with our 5 children, the oldest being 14 and the youngest being about 7 months, to Jerusalem. And we lived in Israel for 8 years, and it was an incredible game changer for our family. We became an international family. We're always somewhere in the world or missing somewhere in the world, and our kids are out abroad. At any given time, somebody's out there. And just really made us into global citizens. After we were 8 years in Israel, and we went through the first Gulf War in Jerusalem. Yes, Robert?
What motivated you move to Jerusalem?
Oh, you're not supposed to ask that. Our stock answer is we went for work, but we didn't have a job in Israel. We went because Heavenly Father wanted us to go. So it was a hard adjustment, and we didn't have work when we left, but everything worked out fabulously, and it just was a wonderful, wonderful, life-changing experience for us. And I wouldn't have been able to write my book without being there and learning what we did. After the Gulf War, we moved to Cyprus, the island of Cyprus, and we lived there 3.5 years. We spent 9 months in LA, and then we moved to Ireland for a year. After Ireland, we came back to the States, and then we served a mission in Malaysia. So we've kind of been a lot of places, but not enough. We still have places we need to go. So that's kind of our story and my heritage. If you want to see my conversion story, go ahead and watch that online through the link that we'll give you. Yeah, do I see a question? No? Okay, just stretching. Do that too.
Question?
Yeah. The link will be on Bnai Shalom's website. It's pretty easy to find. It was a lot of fun to film too. Okay? Yes?
Your maiden name?
Okay, my father's name was Tompakov, Tompakov. And by the time the 40s ended and the 50s started to come along, it was not a good thing to have a Russian last name in America, with McCarthyism and all of those kinds of things happening. So he and his father changed their names to something phonetic, which turned out to be Mexican, which is Tampico, Tampico, like the orange juice. So I just got a thing from Ancestry. They're sending out these things, what does your last name mean and where in the world is it? So yeah, it's in Mexico, which means absolutely nothing to me. So
now it's not popular to be Mexican.
That's right. What can you do? So I married my husband. His last name is Boyd. It's always going to be in style. So yeah. So what I'm going to do today? Yeah.
What were you doing in Ireland? What was the purpose?
Ireland was for work. It was actually for work. And it was, if you ever get a chance, yeah, Ireland's just so much fun. Yeah.
And was that the era when there was a Jewish mayor of Dublin?
No, unfortunately. But boy, I wished I was Irish the whole time I was there. What a fun place. Yeah.
I was just going to ask about traditional names. Did you have in your family traditional names, or were they Americanized in terms of the tradition of naming us or someone that
That's really interesting because I had an ancestor on my mother's side who was actually named by Napoleon to be part of the Great Sanhedrin that he created in the Palatinate of France. So when it was a German Palatinate that became French under Napoleon, he created a Sanhedrin, and one of my ancestors was on it. Jews at that time didn't have last names. And so Napoleon demanded that they choose one. So you might have a family of brothers, and they could all choose a different last name. So it gets a little confusing in there. But my relative, my ancestor, his name ended up to be Felsenthal. And he actually said to Napoleon, I don't know what last name to choose. And Napoleon said, well, there's flowers, see the flowers? You just choose a German name about this valley, beautiful valley of flowers. So you see a lot of, valley of flowers, hill of flowers, things like that, where people chose these last names. So as far as names, all of my German Jewish names are very common, German Jewish names, and I really don't know what my last names in my father's side mean. Oh, Tompikov means bronze. Bronze is like the metal bronze or color bronze. Yeah?
I have to take you back to Philadelphia because that's where I'm from. You said it was your
It was-
Can you repeat the question?
It was my mother's family in Philadelphia, the Blumenthals. Blumenthal Chocolate Factory.
I never knew. I ate the candy, but I never knew.
Yeah, that was their family. All the brothers went into business together, and they did very well. Yeah.
For international travel, were you employed by the State Department or the private corporation?
We were always private, but we have a daughter who's in the State Department now, so that's continuing on that way. We always envied State Department people because they have APO, FPO, and they get to order things from Amazon. It's a nice way to live. Okay, so yeah.
How did your family accept your conversion?
They didn't. It was nasty. As the years went on, some good things happened, as they usually do. If you're radiating light and things are going well in your life, people start to take notice. So my parents were very much against my conversion. They allowed it, but they fought it all the way. So yeah, it was difficult, really difficult. But I do talk about that a little bit in my conversion story. So anything else? Yeah, Mitch.
I was going to ask if you could share an experience that you lived in Israel with us.
Yeah, in Israel, it was amazing. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And because we went over without much in the way of support, without much money, our children went to Hebrew schools for the first 5 years that we were there. And that really helped with our immersion and learning about the holidays and the traditions and everything. And I can remember getting handwritten notes home from school written by the teachers that I could not, my Hebrew is not great. I do speak some, but it's not really good. And to read a note and say, okay, so my daughter tomorrow is supposed to bring a dry, silly savage to school. It could get silly. And I had a lot of really funny experiences because of mistakes, making cultural errors. The more mistakes you make, the funnier life is. So it was a wonderful 8 years. Even the Gulf War was a great adventure, with missiles coming in and all of that kind of thing. But it's too much to talk about. Someday I'll just do that. Any other questions? Yeah.
From your background, from your experiences, what would be your best advice to all of us going forward based on what you've learned and perceived through the years?
Wow, one of the things that happened to us is that because we didn't have a lot of funds when we went to Israel, I didn't get back to the United States until we had been abroad for 4 years. So I was 4 years completely away from the United States, and I had learned so much. I mean, Israel is a real testing ground. It's a very difficult place to live. It's just, there's irony everywhere, and irony is draining. And it was a new culture, and we were trying to work against all of these things, and Satan is after you. He doesn't want LDS people necessarily in Israel. So when I got to the States, I felt like I had grown by leaps and bounds, and I was just ready to share all of this growth with my friends. And when I sat down with them and just started to have friendly conversations, they had progressed just as much as I had without going anywhere. So that was a big lesson for me, because I was in Israel. I lived in Jerusalem. And I lived not as a tourist, not as a BYU person, but just really lived in Jerusalem like Israelis or Palestinians. And we had friends in both groups. And I came back, and people who had never left Provo knew as much as I did about life. And so I think that those lessons, Heavenly Father finds a way to bring them to you some way or another. And you really don't have to go anywhere. Now, I feel really enriched by my international experiences, and it makes me love diversity in race and culture and all of these things. But the lessons, I don't have a corner on. And I think that's a big lesson that I learned. Okay, so what I'm going to do tonight is give you a couple of fun lessons, and they're going to be shallow. But because we're not going to go deeply into these things. But there's a few things in Jewish mysticism that pop up in our own faith, because they're all connected to these very ancient things that somehow in the Restoration got restored. So I just want to touch on a couple of those things just as a little gift to you tonight. And as I said, this will not be a deep dive. It's not going to be scholarly or intellectual or anything like that. But I'm going to talk to you about a couple of the things that we get from Jewish mysticism that kind of enlighten us on what's happening and what has happened in the Restoration. Any guesses as to who this is in the picture? Ezekiel. That's Ezekiel, and what is happening here? Yeah, he had these weird visions, didn't he? And this is not as far back as we go. We go back even farther than this for something in Jewish mysticism called Merkabah mysticism. Who knows about Merkabah mysticism? So some of you probably should come up here and do this.
Is that a form of Catholicism?
It's from Kabbalah, yeah. Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, and Merkabah mysticism is a section of that. And Merkabah means chariot, essentially. So this is the chariot that takes you to heaven. So Merkabah mysticism in Judaism is all about finding out what's up there. And the way you find out what's up there is you go. But then you don't want to die, right? You want to go, you want to see it in vision, and then you want to come back alive. So reading about these visits to heaven, or this extra knowledge of heaven that Ezekiel, and going back even farther, Enoch had, is what the Merkabah mystics wanted to know. So in 1992, a literary critic, really he was an English major type and loved Shakespeare and poetry, Harold Bloom. Did anybody read his book, The American Religion? Okay. So Harold Bloom wrote a book, and he got a lot wrong about our church. But Harold Bloom is Jewish. He's essentially agnostic. He does literary criticism, but he took a deep dive into Jewish mysticism. And then a little bit later, he wrote this book called The American Religion. And in the American Religion, he profiles several religions that came into existence in the United States. And he spends the most time on Mormonism, and excuse me for using that word, Mormonism, but it's shorter than the whole thing. So Harold Bloom, being Jewish and a scholar, and having done this deep dive into Kabbalah, and especially Merkabah mysticism, has some things to say about Joseph Smith. He said, whatever his lapses, Smith was an authentic religious genius, unique in our national history. Joseph Smith, went back to a Judaism that preceded even the Yahvist. And the Yahvist was the author of Genesis, essentially. We're going back to before the one God faith, to the origins of time. Somehow, Joseph Smith went back and captured Jewish mysticism from that far back. And so Harold Bloom was just blown away. How could this possibly happen? It's obviously because Joseph Smith had this huge library that he spent all of this time researching Kabbalah, right? Before he started translating the scriptures that we have today. Imagine what these Merkabah mystics who just wanted to know what heaven was like, if they had seen the vision that Joseph Smith saw of the kingdoms of heaven. I mean, that is a Kabbalist dream come true. So here's Joseph Smith doing exactly what these Kabbalists wanted to achieve. So, in Merkabah mysticism, in order to learn Merkabah mysticism through the ages, and especially in the Middle Ages where people were training each other in it, you had to prove yourself worthy. You had to be a real mensch. You had to have a very high level of moral fitness and religious fitness in order to qualify to be taught Merkabah mysticism. In other words, the knowledge of how to get to heaven and what heaven is like. So, if you were going to be taught by a rabbi what Merkabah mysticism entails and what's in it, he would teach you one-to-one and make sure that you were absolutely qualified, and everything would be kept secret from the masses because they're just not worthy to receive the information. So what this was meant to do was to completely remake your character so that you would live a transcendent life. So almost you would be living with one foot on the earth and one foot in heaven. If you succeeded, and only a handful of people have, including Rabbi Akiva, and you've heard of Rabbi Akiva, if you succeeded in receiving these visions and becoming a Merkabah mystic, you would discover a realm where God lives. And this is a God with body parts, not a spirit God like the Jews currently believe in. This was an anthropomorphic God on a throne in a robe that fills essentially the immensity of heaven. So in this realm, you would encounter angels, you would encounter Metatron. Who's heard of Metatron? Yeah, Metatron is assistant God. Anything that God does is enacted by Metatron. I guess we have our own definition of who that would be. Anything that God accomplishes is accomplished through him, but the Jews do not equate him with Jesus Christ when he obviously is Jesus Christ. You would encounter the Shekinah of God. So who knows what Shekinah is? That is God's glory or influence. And in Kabbalah, this Shekinah, this glory of God, this influence of God, is feminine. So this Shekhinah is equated with honored wife, daughter, sister, all of the roles of women, but not sexually. It's a position of love and caring, but it's not a sexual type of a thing like the pagan gods have. So if you can imagine Abraham being in the courts of Egypt and saying, Sarah is my sister, if he's talking Kabbalah, then he's equating her with the feminine of God. And of course, the courts of Pharaoh couldn't possibly understand what he was talking about, because he was talking about a heavenly sense that they had no clue existed. So this Shekinah, the influence and glory of God, fire everywhere you would encounter. Ruach HaKodesh, which is the Holy Ghost, you would encounter. And all of these things would come to you in your experience of visiting heaven. Well, you want to survive all of this. And so what the rabbis who were engaging in Merkabah mysticism would try to do is they would try to have a near-death experience, which you sit down in a chair, you put your head between your legs and start to chant and hope that you pass out, and really pass out so that you have a near-death experience, which, a lot of us have done this on the playground, right? It seems a bit strange to me, but it was really important to them to try to have this experience. So Enoch is our main example. Ezekiel, Elijah, Rabbi Akiva, and there have been several others who have achieved this. So one of the things that you have to learn in order to get to heaven and live and return to tell about it is that you have to master the use of names. These are new names that you use to pass the sentinels to get to heaven. So the Merkabah mystics were very much afraid of these sentinels. It was really difficult to get past them, and they had to have seals, what they call seals, to get past these sentinels to heaven. You couldn't be uninitiated. It was a really scary thing. So they would invoke the names of God and names of angels, these names that were not known to people in normal life. They were all secret names that they had to use as keys to get them past the sentinels. Now, this is a quote from Brigham Young, and it's in our lesson manuals. Yeah.
Is that referring to the 72 names of God, or is this something different?
They use those names of God, but also of various angels.
Okay.
One of the things that they tried to do was accrue names that were secret to them that they could use as keys to get past these sentinels. So Brigham Young said of the endowment, let me give you a definition in brief. Your endowment is to receive all those ordinances in the house of the Lord, which are necessary for you after you have departed this life, to enable you to walk back to the presence of the Father, passing the angels who stand as sentinels, being enabled to give them the key words, the signs and tokens, pertaining to the holy priesthood, and gain your eternal exaltation in spite of earth and hell. And if that doesn't sound like Merkabah mysticism, I don't know what does. If you said that to a Merkabah mystic, he would think you were quoting Merkabah mysticism. So that even though Harold Bloom doesn't know anything about what's going on in the temple, all of the other things that Joseph Smith came up with impressed him, that Joseph Smith was going all the way back to Enoch as far as his restoration of Merkabah mysticism. And it was just stunning for him. And he got a lot wrong about figuring out what we believed, but that is, to me, really an astonishing thing. So I just have one other gift I want to give you, but are there any questions about what I just did? Because I'm going to be done with Merkabah mysticism. Yeah?
So where are these
In the United States, I'm not sure. People who study Kabbalah may get into Merkaba mysticism, but they have to be initiated. You know, it's just kept really tight to the chest.
So it's not places like Rabbi Philip or with the Kabbalah.
Like Kabbalah centers? No.
It's not.
This is deep
It's way
stuff.
beyond.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in Israel, where would they exist?
In Israel, you would have to inquire. I mean, it's not, there wouldn't be like a building that said,
I
you
know.
know.
I mean, I was wondering if you...
Yeah, so, and this was all located in Spain during the Middle Ages,
Right.
which was really the golden age of Kabbalah. And Isaac Luria and some of these other rabbis who wrote during that time, that was really when it was its heyday. And I don't know who's doing it now, but it would have to be a really elite secret group. Yeah.
My mother was born in Poland. She was a Holocaust survivor. And I remember her very clearly talking that they weren't allowed to study Talmud, let alone Kabbalah or anything else. So getting into this, is there a division between men and women in studying this?
Yeah, the 10 sphirot of Kabbalist learning and everything. The thing is that the men who were big into Kabbalah in Spain in the Middle Ages wrote a lot. And that which they wrote was printed and handed around in secret. So people could get a hold of it. A lot of people got a hold of it on the sly. But I don't know that women would be initiated into Merkabah Kabbalah. And Kabbalah, I would not study. This is very interesting to me. But I would not go into Kabbalah because it really gets into magic, way into magic. And I mean, if you're creating, Frankenstein's monster was a golem, that's Kabbalah. That you can create a human just, you know, without a soul to serve you. It gets into some really weird things. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of information in that is like the law of Moses. It's per the terrestrial kingdom dimension, not the celestial.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I totally agree. What is fascinating about this is that how ancient these ideas are and how they've been gathered in and restored. How Joseph Smith could have grabbed these things out of the ether, you know, is really amazing. And it's all one eternal realm. All of those truths are in there, but you have to go through a lot of stuff to get them. Yeah.
And from what I understand, I mean, pretty much any Hasidic congregation believes in Kabbalah and mysticism and stuff like that, but you're not supposed to study until you're at least 40. So even reading the book of Ezekiel or...
Yeah, and so the more orthodox you get, the more you lean towards ecstasy. And they want to bring that ecstasy into their worship. And that's correct, yeah.
Yeah. Now, wasn't the singer Madonna involved in the...
Yeah, she's a Kabbalist. Yeah, and that's popular Hollywood Kabbalism, you know. Yeah. Oh, yeah, sorry. It's too late for that, isn't it? It really is. Okay, this is really nifty. I'm going to go into one last thing in just a few minutes, just a few minutes. And that is, what is perfection? This is a message from Joseph Picatia, who was a Kabbalist in the Middle Ages in Spain. And in our Sunday school classes, we have gotten a clue that perfection is wholeness. And so you hear that message over and over again. Don't worry about being perfect, because perfection is wholeness. It's not being perfect in everything. And that comforts us. And so that's like learning a teeny bit of Judaism when the rest is so cool and can help us so much. So we have this commandment Therefore, with the E should be perfect, even as I or your Father in heaven is perfect. So, what I'm going to do now is give you from Jewish mysticism what it means to be whole, tam or shulam, words that mean wholeness, and this will comfort you even more than those Sunday school lessons that tell you you don't have to be perfect, you just have to be whole. Okay, so you need to have 7 qualities to be perfect, and this is what they are, and it all goes back to the temple. The 7 attributes of God is what you need to obtain in order to become whole. And each attribute is identified with a prophet. So the first attribute is love. Is that a big surprise? The first attribute of God that you need to obtain to become whole and perfect is love. And that is represented by, that's Abraham, right? The second attribute is justice.
Back to love, is that an agape love? The Greek
Yeah,
agape
absolutely.
love?
Yeah. Charity. The second is justice. So are we just? That's a really cool question to ask ourselves, is whether we're just in the things that we do, in our business dealings, in the way we deal with our families, on the street. Are we just people? And it's Isaac, because I don't know why. She wants to know why it's Isaac. I don't know, that because the Kabbalists assigned Isaac to justice.
Because he was extremely strict with the commandments.
Okay, that's why. Thank you so much. Say it louder.
So, because Isaac was extremely strict with living the commandments.
Okay, he strictly lived the commandments. He was a just person. The third quality is mercy. I think we can get a handle on these. I find this a lot better than my to-do list. And this is Jacob. There he is wrestling with an angel. So those are the 3 main qualities of God. But there are 7 that we need to obtain to be perfect. The 4th is kingship. Now that's a surprise, but not if you've been through the temple. I think we've got a handle on this one, because Heavenly Father has shown us how to do this. So in order to become perfect, you need to have kingship. Yeah?
Is that maybe some alignment with Melchizedek, righteous?
King of righteousness, yeah.
So is there a priesthood part of the kingship?
Well, obviously there is, because it's all priesthood. It's all priesthood. And who do you think this is? David, yeah. The next one is prophecy. Another surprise on your list of things that you need to become perfect. So personal revelation is part of becoming whole. And that is Moses. And as you said, the next one is priesthood. Aaron is the representative of priesthood. And the last one, the 7th quality, is enduring to the end. This all came from a Jewish mystic in the Middle Ages. Is that a bit surprising? It's a delight to me to have this information come from a Middle Ages Jewish mystic in Spain, because this is right up our alley. This is Joseph. Yeah.
Who was the prophet for prophecy?
For prophecy, it's Moses.
Oh, Moses.
So, first is love, that's Abraham. Justice, Isaac. Mercy, Jacob. Kingship is David, prophecy is Moses, and priesthood is Aaron.
So what's the seventh?
There they are. I forgot about that one. Okay, I'm just going to leave you with a little statement from Bruce R. McConkie. Don't leave me, I always have to finish with a statement from Bruce R., right? Israel is an eternal people. She came into being as a chosen and separate congregation before the foundations of the earth were laid. She was a distinct and a peculiar people in pre-existence, even as she is in this sphere. I think that's a really cool statement, and I've learned a lot from my cursory studies of these things in Jewish mysticism that enter that circle of truth that came from before the world was. And it's amazing to me to see how much of this has been restored through the prophet that we had who initiated the restoration. So I'm going to end there. Are there any last questions? Yeah.
Just bringing it up to date, there's so many conversion stories to Christ right now among the Jewish people. I just think it's fascinating. So that's one thing that's happening rapidly right now. And there are a lot of, on YouTube, you'll see a lot of conversion stories, and it's just amazing. And the other is the connection with Native American peoples. My friend is she worked for the Department of Justice, and when she came out here as a Jewish woman, she was like, a kiva is a word that we use. Kiva is, for Native Americans. So she was just so, sorry about that. She was so taken aback by the connection between the Native American peoples and the Jewish peoples.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that. Sorry if you couldn't hear it.
Do you have any comments though on that?
Not that I have time to say. We're really out of time.
Kind of the hastening of life.
Yeah. There's definitely a hastening. And you may be interested in Nazarene Jews. There are 250,000 Nazarene Jews. They live in an Orthodox lifestyle, Orthodox Jewish lifestyle, but they believe that Yeshua is the Messiah. They're an interesting group, yeah.
The men that were in...
Use the microphones that are out there. The microphones that are out there, could you pass them to the people who are making the comments?
in the nesting schools, the priest or the men who were there, and one of them they think was John the Baptist. Is this on? I have such a hard time getting it out. But, okay, you think that they were into this mysticism?
They were. The people at Qumran were Kabbalists. They did a lot of Jewish mysticism. Yeah, Jeremy.
Gale, you mentioned these Nazarene Jews, and then I suppose they might be a subsect of Messianic Jews. Do you feel like personally motivated to maybe some Mormons should go out and say, hey, this is what we believe?
Okay, that's an interesting story because Bud and I went to a conference in Denver some years ago that was on Jews and Mormons as covenant people. Truman Madsen was one of the presenters, and others from BYU, and it was just truly interesting. But there were two men there dressed like Lubavitchers, like Orthodox Jews. They were from the Center for Nazarene Judaism, and they had been reading our scriptures, and they were actually both of them drugged out of the sect because they were so keen on Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints scriptures. They were actually doing parsha, doing the scripture reading like you do for the Torah from the Book of Mormon. So right now, the congregation is the Nazarene Jews are not receptive. But I've done a lot of research from those two men, James Trim especially, into calendars, figure out when Christ was crucified and things like that. A lot of that is in my book is dependent on his research. Yeah.
The LDS Church has agreed not to proselyte in Israel, but I belong to an organization that's international called Jews for Jesus, and they do proselyte on the streets.
Right.
They can't knock on doors, but they do proselyte.
Yes. And they've got some really good videos that I've watched. They do. Israel's a nifty place. You can get sent home. You can be deported pretty quick for doing things like that, and sometimes you can be under the radar for a long time. Yeah.
Where are the Nazarene Jews in pockets in the world?
They're located, I think their head offices are in Texas.
So do they, a lot of my Chabad friends, it's all about the Talmud, you know. Does the Nazarene Jews, do they focus more on the Torah, on the scriptures, or are they?
They do the whole shebang, Talmud and everything. They're quite orthodox in their lifestyle. Yeah.
Okay, so my question is more like, I know I'm not the only one, because I've talked to a few people tonight, but I'm a person who, you know, was Latter-day Saint and then found out my Jewish roots, and I am now affiliated with a lot of people who are going through the same process as I am, to regain, you know, make amends for our ancestors, right, who were exiled. But I feel some sort of pull that I'm here finding this stuff out, somehow bringing things full circle somehow, but I don't know what that role looks like. I just feel a sense. I just wondered if you had any insights.
Yeah, so Adis, I finally remembered to repeat the question. Let's see how I do. Adis has recently discovered her Jewish ancestry, and some of that is from Spain, Portugal, through South America, and she's just beginning to discover what her role might be, and that evolves. It really does evolve. Heavenly Father leads you one step to the next. But I think all of us feel like we have a bridge, that we're a bridge between Ephraim and Judah. And all of that has to be put together. It all has to come together. And so all of us feel that calling to be a bridge between those two tribes.
But there's no like revelations or little secret discourses that I haven't read yet that might.
No, you have to interview all of these people. They all have their own revelations. Bonnie.
Where did you go to church when you lived in Israel?
In Israel, there's a number of congregations. We were in the Jerusalem branch, which was the BYU students and people who lived in Jerusalem and people from there. But there's other branches in the country. So
Did you go to church at all?
we went to church on Saturday. Yeah. Yeah, Robert.
Having lived in Israel and closely associated with Jewish people there, when the Savior returns and they realize that he's the Messiah, have you gained any insight as to how they would react or how they would feel about the fact that they're Messiah?
You know, that's a really interesting thing. I've pictured it so many times, and I'm sure my husband would be even more lucid on that kind of a question. We met so many Israelis who are so kind, and they aren't religious at all. They're really open, and you have these little experiences like saying, if Jesus turned out to be the Messiah and came like the Christians expect him to, what would you do? And they would say something like, I'd apologize. You know, they're just really open, while some of the very most religious Jews are pharisaical and to the point of being violent, you know. So Heavenly Father knows their hearts, and we really don't. It's really hard to tell, but in the scriptures we see how mournful they're going to be when they realize. But there's so many who are softening and who are so open that they would turn on a dime. Yeah.
I just am absolutely fallen in love with these Come Follow Me studies, and studying it from this perspective of the New Testament in in the Jewish world, and Christ being a Jewish man, or Jesus, Yeshua being a Jewish man. And it's totally thrown a completely different perspective, and I'm so grateful how brave he was, because some of the things that he was fighting against, we take for granted today. And he was so bold and amazing in his delivering of the message.
Yeah, so what this is a comment about come follow me and trying to give context to what's happening in the New Testament. And that gives me a chance to give a little plug. I'm managing editor for More Good Foundation, and our main website in English is thirdhour.org. And if you just put thirdhour.org / come follow me, just all run together with no caps and no dashes or anything, just come follow me. I've written the commentaries for each lesson, and it's full of Jewish stuff.
Say it again.
So it's Third Hour, all written out. So THIRDHOUR, thirdhour.org / come follow me. It's no caps, just all run together, lowercase. We're doing all of the lessons for Come Follow Me, and I'm writing the commentaries, and it's all got all that Jewish context stuff in it. So if you want to look there, it's all free. You can download PDFs if you want. Yeah.
I guess there's kind of controversy of Jewish members or just Jewish names being used for temple work. What kind of friction do you know about that?
So Jewish names for temple work, yeah, you have to be really, really careful. We do have friends who've been shut out from Family Search and not allowed to do temple work for 6 months because they did some Jewish names that there are watchdogs watching us all the time. I'm really slow about doing my Jewish names, and I don't do any of my Holocaust victims at all. So I was sliding down.
What is that? Is that making
So yeah, you have to watch it.
But you are able to do the Holocaust names because
Pardon?
you're able to do the Holocaust name because you're related to them.
Because you're related, you're supposed to be, but I still don't feel comfortable when there's people watching for just Jewish names. I go slowly with my ancestors and no Holocaust victims. I do have them, but I don't do their work. Yeah.
So on that line of topic, those that are born, let's say 1700, there is no way, if ands or buts, they entered a camp. Do you do those names, or do you just let them wait?
I'm more comfortable with those.
But because I've heard non-Shoah can be done, but I am one of those currently in that 6-month, call it
Are you?
family search chill. I call it family search chill because that's what it feels like.
And for what? What was the reason that you're in the 6 months? Huh? Holocaust
I have
names.
Holocaust names and I have a book to prove it. And
Don't do any Holocaust
I
names.
do not do them. That's my advice. In fact, I won't even touch my Jewish line. Period.
Yeah, it's every time I go through, I just go through on pins and needles for my Jewish names.
Yeah, you run a real.
Yeah.
There will come a time when we are allowed to, but I think we just need to.
It's so true, yeah. Yes.
So I'm a Polish Russian Jew, and my grandfather's family came to the States from Poland. And my mom is one of those who's blocked from doing history, and she tried to fight it because she's definitely related and blah, blah, blah. I think she's at the point now to let's just leave any Holocaust-related names alone for now. I'm sure those spirits are understanding and waiting, and I think things in time will all figure itself out. But I know she was up in arms over it.
It's really good to hear these personal experiences and get advice from people who've been shut out because they've done Holocaust names. Yeah, and every day we get closer to the time when we'll be able to do it. I mean, that's at least positive outlook. Yes.
Just recently, my wife submitted her aunt's name to be
It's hard to be Jewish, it just is.
We are the chosen people.
What I have discovered is if it's your direct family, I mean close direct family, and they did not go to Auschwitz or Sobibor or whatever, they can do. But if you got one stepfather, like I could do my aunt, but not her sister because she died in Auschwitz and her parents died in Auschwitz, so I could not do them. I only could do her because she was married to my uncle, and so that was straight in my mind. They have to do that, but when I submitted her sister without the death date, I got back and said, no, you cannot do that, she died in Auschwitz. I knew that, but I had to find out.
Yeah, if you have genealogy questions, this lady is an expert genie, right? She's from Netherlands, and she's done 60,000 names, and she really knows what she's talking about, so she can really help you with those questions, yes.
So yeah, there'll come a time when we'll be able to do our Holocaust survivor relatives and so forth. But that doesn't prevent us in getting to know them, their stories. Where did they grow up? What did they do professionally? How was their family? How were they married? So I've heard a lot of individuals doing that type of research. So when the day comes, they were able to connect with them because they know them.
I love that, getting to know.
The question, where do you put it, archive it, so online, or is it, is MyHeritage a good, call it safe place?
That's really good questions. We can all talk about that afterwards. But I love talking about getting to know your ancestors. I had a great uncle who imbibed or devoured a can of Eagle brand condensed milk every day. It runs in my veins. I can't eat this stuff anymore, but I sure love it, and now I know why. You know, getting to know these things is really fun. Yeah.
When the brethren were, particularly Elder Bonnie Bruff, who was in charge of the family history at that time, when they first got together to create this fact that the church wouldn't do Holocaust names, as they were meeting with the various rabbis and their intellectual property Jewish lawyers because they couldn't figure out how you would sue. One of the stories that was involved is that they met, and of course it was very emotional, and so they tried to meet with them at one of our genealogical societies, and trying to show what we did and how it's to be done and how we were going to prevent it. So as and it was just upper state New York. Maybe it was in New Jersey, I'm not quite sure, but one of the rabbis, they were able to show some materials. We go out and collect information. We take pictures, history, and so forth. Well, what was interesting is that there was a picture of his father was a rabbi before the Holocaust, and it did some writings, but he thought that they were lost. Well, somehow in this introduction, they were able to show that these writings of his father, and he was very emotional, and they had to cut short the meeting because of that experience. And so that was the other thing that they were trying to show, is not just, it's how we get to know our ancestors, and they actually put that together and gave it to the rabbi.
What a great story. Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Yeah. We have to clean up. right? This is it, just we have to clean it.
Yeah, I think.
We're out of time,
You have
folks.
a temple slide up there.
Yeah, I put up the last slide. for
Oh,
you.
everything goes towards the temple, all the mysticism. I told you that though.
You did.
You don't need that, you can just look at it because it's pretty. Our time is up. I had a lot of fun, I hope you did.